The Trump administration has finally signed the Defense Protection Act. Not signed it, but essentially decided to invoke it. And this is really a wartime act that gives the executive branch some power, some authority to pressure private industry, in some cases even coerce private industry into producing products that are necessary to cope with a crisis. So right now we're dealing with a serious shortage of certain medical supplies, including masks, ventilators, respirators. And so the Trump administration has decided to use this Defense Production Act in order to pressure private industry to produce more of these products. Now, in this case, the DPA, as it's called, would allow the United States government to incentivize a company who already makes emergency medical supplies to make more of them. And this makes a lot of sense. This was something that Trump was resistant to for some reason in the beginning, but he did announce that he will invoke it today. Take a look.
We'll be invoking the Defense Production Act just in case we need it. In other words, I think you all know what it is, and it can do a lot of good things if we need it, and we will have it all completed. Signing it in just a little while, right after I'm finished with this conference. I'll be signing it. It's prepared to go.
Okay, so I want to get into like the serious details about the shortages and how it's important that he invoke this. But I can't help but comment on like the way he delivers anything, right?
It's so bizarre.
Like, you all know what that is. No, but here's the issue. I'm sure some of the reporters in that, press gaggle do know what it is, but he doesn't know what it is, right? Like that's why he doesn't want to explain what it is.
I think you're giving the White House press corps way too much credit.
Maybe I am, maybe I am.
They do not have any idea until maybe like 5 minutes ago what that was.
No, he clearly, he had like a little line, a description about like what the Defense Production Act was. And he was just like, I'm gonna skip over this, too many words, and you all know what it is. And like he's basically, and this is the thing about Trump and media disinformation that I find really upsetting is that in the same breath that he can mock, news for actually doing their job, he's not providing the information that a president needs to provide. So just in that example, he's essentially saying, I'm relying on you guys.
Yeah,
he's
look,
admitting that.
Especially when it comes to this act, what it means, what it does, how it impacts not just private industry, but like how do you support those efforts, right? To produce more of the medical supplies that we need. But I think the issue with Trump is he's been so incredibly hostile toward the media. He's been so bad at communicating things. But in the last few days, and believe me, I'm not doing a Dana Bash thing here, right? I'm not giving him like a world of credit and saying like, oh, he's so presidential. No, what I am saying though is, oh wow, he's actually holding press conferences daily now, right? Low bar, but at least there's some information coming through, and I'm more interested to hear what the professionals surrounding him have to say, right? Because they do luckily convey important information that we need to know. Now, let me give you some of the numbers when it comes to what we're experiencing with shortages and what we might have to deal with very soon. So the number of cases in the United States when it comes to coronavirus is over 5,300 by Tuesday afternoon. So that was yesterday. And it's on the same trajectory as in many other countries, including Italy, which now has more than 30,000 cases. And keep in mind that Italy was slow to respond and react to coronavirus, which is why their healthcare system is overwhelmed and overburdened. So this is something that he should have invoked much earlier. There were both Democrats and Republicans urging him to do it. For some reason, he was resistant to it, but luckily he did invoke it today.
This goes back to like the World War II example, like FDR famously basically just took over entire industries, compelled private companies to make tanks and planes and stuff. Like at one point he said like, we're gonna make 50,000 planes this year. And all his advisors were like, I don't know if we can do that. He's like, if they try hard enough, I'm sure they can. And it goes back to this. It's something that we haven't had in a long time in the United States, which is that the government actually has the power to compel private corporations to do the things it needs to do to serve a public interest, right? A private corporation would never serve the public interest for any reason. I mean, the only thing they can do is make as much profit as possible. The only entity powerful enough to channel the production capabilities of a private corporation towards some social benefit, like in this case, making masks, ventilators, all that stuff, is through pure coercion, and this is like the way to do it. And so it's a no-brainer. I mean, they haven't really like done anything with it yet, but they're gonna probably have to. I mean, it's
and this is really the only option at this point. I was reading about how because Trump was so slow to take coronavirus seriously, he didn't pursue some of the medical supplies that were already out on the market, and they were purchased by other countries, understandably so.
Yeah.
Right. And so we can't blame those other countries. They're trying to protect their public the best they can. And so I'm glad that Trump did invoke the Defense Production Act because they need to produce more of these medical supplies to keep people alive.
I just think it's great that for the first time in a very long time, our war effort isn't actually going to fight a war.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Many of the past few wars have been based on utter BS, but obviously not World War II. And like, it is kind of nice so that we can look back on our history. And I think it is right to look at coronavirus as an enemy, not a Wuhan or a Chinese enemy, as Pompeo literally just said the other day, stoking xenophobia, but really looking at it as a national mobilization and a national effort. And like, oh my God, maybe we'll get a more comprehensive healthcare program when this is all done, and I would argue that it's progressives' jobs at this moment to make that case for Medicare for all.
Yeah, I mean, for better or worse, we have this enormous military that has been used to murder people around the world for decades and decades for no reason. But in the short term, we can turn our tons of military bases into temporary hospitals, like use the Army Corps of Engineers to become healthcare workers, all manner of stuff. Like turn that capability into dealing with the immediate crisis, because it's one of the largest parts of our federal government right now, and it can be mobilized at a moment's notice.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And so one final statistic to share with you all, just to show you how dire this situation is. I'm gonna go jump ahead to the last graphic here. There are about 160,000 ventilators which assist sick patients with their breathing, but as many as 740,000 could be needed. So that's how dire the situation is. So this was the right call by Trump. I wish he made the call earlier. He was resistant to it before, and he was reported as saying, we'll make that decision pretty quickly if we need it. We hope we don't need it. It's a big step.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it is a big step. I mean, we've for so many decades, we've internalized the idea that the government has no control over corporations. And it does, it really does. I mean, it's the only entity that does. So, maybe silver lining when we get past this will be one of the small ways in which we get over that mentality for once and for all.
Also put the Amish to work. Like, what are they doing? Like, are they still making quilts really in the middle of a pandemic?
That sounds
Make
lovely.
some masks, quilt some masks, okay? If you're Amish and you're watching, which you're not, but spread the word.
Get it to them. Do they even know about
I
coronavirus?
don't even know how your mind went to the Amish.
They've been practicing social distancing for way too long.
They're gonna be the healthiest people. They're gonna inherit the earth.
They're the only ones who are gonna survive.
They're gonna be like
them,
they're gonna like wander into some city, and it's gonna be like just a couple of zombies, and they're like, what
the
happened
Amish come
here?
out with a bunch of quilts, like what?
If that's what it takes to survive, I will become Amish. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna make money because everything I do goes against what they believe.
Can you grow a beard though?
Can you churn butter?
No, thankfully. Can I what?
Churn butter.
I'd like to try.
Yeah, exactly.
That
Well,
sounds
you'll
fun.
have plenty of time at home to do that, Anna.
Listen to Weird Al Yankovic. He knows how to become Amish.